I'm a big believer in going as long as you can without taking capital, outside capital, unless you're 100% sure, that, or as sure as you can be anyway, that you're going to return a major profit. If the expectation that you have of your business for this first raise is that you cannot get that company to 10 times the value you're taking an investment in the next 5 to 8 years, you should not be raising money. Once you raise money, a few things will change about your life. One, you will no longer have the ability to fail and not have people be very upset with you. Two is you now have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to those individuals.
And that is coming up next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show, so stay tuned. So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough, use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams? Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. We have created a tremendous community of bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ambitious, resourceful, and want to get things done. We brainstorm, support, and help each other out. So come join us. Navigate to bootstrapping.group, join today, and get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series absolutely free. If you enjoy this video, then do let us know by hitting that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, then go ahead and hit that thumbs down button and give us your honest feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tatternoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging videos, interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Kevin Van Eekeren. Kevin is currently the CEO of Fulcrum Investing, but he started his career training SWAT teams nationwide. Recognizing a gap in the market in 2008, Kevin started Fulcrum Tactical, a realistic tactical training charity available to law enforcement personnel only. When the time was right, he took it for profit and grew it into a national organization. In 2014, he sold the company to get into investing, and Fulcrum Investing was born. The process Fulcrum Investing uses to vet startups is very entrepreneur focused. With over 50 investments nationwide, Fulcrum Investing is making the waves in investing world. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. So first of all, let's talk about your interesting past with training SWAT teams. So, I'm picturing a really big guy with big muscles. Is that how you look like in real life? And tell us how you got into training SWAT teams. This sounds so cool.
Yeah, no, I'm not that guy at all, actually. It started out because I was studying, one of the many things I studied in college was criminal justice. And so I had done 2,000 hours of ride-alongs with police departments as partial credit for my degree. And so I became interested in it, and I realized that I've also grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I always loved and understood business at a very deep level at a very young age. So I always knew I wanted to start a business, but I wanted to start out doing something unique and different before I had bills and family and all that stuff holding me down. So I spent 2 years as a volunteer, civilian, on a SWAT team. Actually, I spent 4 years in total, but the first 2 years was me learning the industry so that I could start the company that I thought the industry required.
I see. So that's kind of surprising. Like, they allow civilians in SWAT teams?
So I'm not the one, civilians aren't the one kicking in the doors. We're called logistics officers. And a logistics officer does a whole host of things. My particular task was professionalizing the SWAT team, which is much like herding cats. But it was a great experience because I had to learn how to get very alpha male, very strong-headed type A personalities to listen to a 24-year-old who didn't know squat about training or tactics. And I had to deliver that in a unique way.
I see. All right, so let's move forward. And how did you think about turning this into a business, a nonprofit, or something entrepreneurial? How did you realize that this is something that people want?
Sure. So I had been spending 2 years trying to professionalize the SWAT team, and as I did, what I noticed was that training was the number one key to allowing officers and civilians to survive deadly encounters, which at the end of the day is all we care about. And so after I realized that, the 2008 economic collapse hit, and seeing that was in real estate, and about half our country's municipalities are funded, at least partially, by property taxes. I knew if people couldn't afford their mortgage, they weren't going to be able to afford property taxes. So in 18 to 24 months, I was expecting that the bottom would fall out of all the budgets, and the first thing to be cut is training. So I figured, why not give this away for free, develop a brand, knowing that or hoping at least that eventually the government would have to come in and fund the training of these SWAT teams because it would become a national security issue. And so I started Fulcrum Tactical Training and Support as a charity, and I ran that for 18 months until it finally reached a point where the government realized they had to fund training. And when they did, we went for profit in less than 30 days, which is really hard, but it was worth it. And then we gobbled up a bunch of those contracts and grew dramatically and hired some amazing trainers and went from there.
Awesome. That's great. And so by the way, it's kind of interesting. The theme of the show is bootstrapping. And now we are going to talk about your investment firm. So let's start to, draw some contrast in your philosophy about investing and how startups raise money. And, what we talk about here is bootstrapping. So can you help us, what is your preference, first of all? And did you bootstrap your first business?
Yes, I did. I did not raise any money for my first business. Also, I didn't think anyone would invest in charity. But yes, I'm a big believer in going as long as you can without taking capital, outside capital, unless you're 100% sure, that, or as sure as you can be anyway, that you're going to return a major profit.
Yeah. So that's a huge endorsement from a venture capitalist saying that bootstrapping is the way to go. So thank you for validating that. And now let's talk about your investment company. Like, how do you? So one thing I noticed, you said that your philosophy is very much tied to the entrepreneur himself or herself. So can you tell us, how did you develop that philosophy? What triggered that thought process, and how do you pick your investments?
Of course. So to understand how this philosophy was developed, I have to go back a little bit. So while I was running the tactical training company, I had invested on the side in my first company, which is a tech company, a point of sale system. And I saw that just wasn't doing well. The team needed a leader. And so I jumped in while I was the CEO of that and doing 30 hours of ride-alongs a week as well, and on a SWAT team. I decided, well, I don't have enough going on. I'm going to go be the CEO of another company too, like an idiot. And so I hopped in there, and I realized two things. One, we had to raise money. And so I went down that road of raising money. And two, I realized that as a CEO, I'm not a tech expert by any means. I should have never been the CEO of that company. And ultimately, we did not end up taking money, but I did go through the process of trying to raise money for that company. And it was very, very painful. And it was very investor focused, not entrepreneur focused. And it almost seemed like a heartless, soulless concept that they were proposing. Their investment strategy was heartless. And so I went down the road so that company failed, probably the best experience I ever had, learned the most from it. And then going from there, I had several other investments that I helped them raise money. And I continued to see how horrible that process was and how inefficient it was. So when I started Fulcrum Investing, my entire philosophy was to be as entrepreneur focused as possible. So we have a process that gets done in 30 days, no matter what. We are very open, honest, and clear about what that process is, what we should expect from them, what they should expect from us, and exactly what details they are and are not going to get from us at the end of that process. We also try and provide as much value to them as possible. So we buy things like psychological testing that not only helps us, but then we review it with them openly and honestly, whether we invest or not, so that they're gaining some kind of value out of our interaction.
I see. So you actually buy the product or service? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I buy several services that we then offer to them for free, whether we invest or not.
Oh, got it. Okay, so that's a very, obviously very unique way, because I have dealt with a lot of venture capitalists myself, and as you just pointed out, it's kind of painful for the entrepreneurs because, I mean, no fault of the venture capitalists. They are getting like 100 calls a day, so I'm sure they have their own problems to deal with. But this is a very unique way to tackle this problem. And so, do you think a lot of other venture capitalists are doing something similar, or you are uniquely positioned in the market?
Well, when I first started, it was brand new. I didn't know any other investor that tried this concept. And slowly over time, I've seen a few of my fellow investors take on pieces of this, and I like to see it, especially the value add. Most investors refuse to do the 30 days. They love to have that, well, if I'm going to take it to 120 days, I'm going to take 120 days and I don't care. But they really see the value in adding something for the startup. And I'm really happy to see that.
That's awesome. That's great. And so, we have a lot of startup founders, aspiring entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs in the audience. So, one advice you already gave was, try to bootstrap as long as you can. But let's say it's time to raise money now. So what is the advice you will give them for somebody who has never raised money, but they know they need to, or maybe they don't even need to, that may be the first advice. How do you even determine that you need to raise money? And then what are some of the pieces of advice you can give them on how to go about raising money?
Sure. Well, I think there's a big difference between needing and should they raise money. So there's a lot of companies that need to raise money. There are far fewer that should. And so, first of all, I always say, if the expectation that you have of your business for this first raise is that you cannot get that company to 10 times the value you're taking an investment in the next 5 to 8 years, you should not be raising money.
Okay.
And then once you figure that out, the next step really is, once you start raising money, you're going to figure out how much hunger there is for your concept in the investing market. And if you have a lot of investors coming to you and trying to get in, if it's easy to raise money, you need to find investors that share your values and that aren't going to try and take control from you. You also need to make sure that you are prepared to deliver on everything you're telling them plus 20%. So I would, 99 times out of 100, I would love to see someone tell me that they're going to make a 50% increase in revenue every year over someone that tells me they're going, and then actually achieves that, other than what I normally see, which is we're going to make 5,000% profit in the next year. It's like, okay, that's just not going to happen. So I'd much rather see a conservative estimate of what's going to happen, and then someone overachieve that any day than anything else.
That's a good piece of advice. Now, what about, so are you saying that that like a company needs to have some sort of a revenue before they go out and raise money, or should they consider raising money even at an earlier stage?
Certainly there are companies out there that can raise money without ever making a dime. A great example of that is a social media platform that needs 10 million users before they can monetize, right? It's kind of ridiculous to expect that to ever get to that level without raising serious capital. So I certainly agree with that there are some circumstances, but in most businesses outside of that, I would absolutely say that it is a necessity to have some kind of revenue. And that's not, by the way, for the investor. Forget the investor. It's for the business. Because if they have revenue, they can increase the amount of money they can value their company at, and therefore they won't lose control too quickly of that company. And hopefully they'll make more money when it does finally exit.
Yeah. That's so true. I have the same mindset and I preach the same thing. So it's good that we are aligned there. Now, you talk to entrepreneurs and startup founders every day. Do you think that their mindset is in the right place? Because I feel that these days, raising money is celebrated more than making money. Good examples are, companies like Uber who are going IPO, but yet they haven't made a profit. So what is your opinion about this? Are people changing their mindset about what a real business is all about, or they're still, it's still in that mode of, we will make money later, but let's build, let's get some traction, let's get some eyeballs on our platform.
Yeah, I'm not a giant supporter of things like that. I see that there is value to some of it. So I want to put that out there. I'm not completely against it, but I will say that it does concern me when things like that are proposed far more. Like, for example, just in the past few days, I've seen several deals where people think that they're going to be the next Uber of whatever. And now it's become a ubiquitous term that everyone that comes to me says, I'm going to be the next Uber of whatever. I'm like, it's at this point, I don't want to hear it. You're lying. There's no way. You're not going to be the next Uber of it. Do something else. So I think it's because they saw Uber raise so much amazing. I mean, it was just an insane amount of money that they raised. It was crazy. And it was so out there that everyone thinks, oh, well, I can do that. I can become a billionaire and I don't have to make a profit. And I think that ultimately the goal should be to get to profitability as soon as possible. And if you can do that with raising very little or no money at all, then you can drastically increase your valuation. Then you can raise a bunch of money, not dilute your ownership in it too much, have a bunch of working capital, then don't make profit for a while to really grow that business like crazy and work back to profitability again. That, in my mind, for most business models, works wonderfully.
That's awesome. Great advice, by the way. Now, what about, as you're building your business, what are, okay, so let me ask another question because you brought up this point about billionaires. So I feel that, that is another thing that people have this misconception that the moment they start their startup, either it's going to be a unicorn, make them a billionaire or nothing. So, they don't even consider that, okay, even a $10 million business could be a very healthy business and it could actually, give them a very much a desirable lifestyle that we all want. So do you notice that people have these sort of, misconceptions about what a $1 billion means? And there are other areas of business where they can do make a really good life, even if it's not a $1 billion company?
Well, I find that as an investor, people have to tone down some of the things they say. And so I don't hear too often that they personally expect to be a billionaire. It's because they're trying to sell me to give them money. So often it's more so, you're going to become a billionaire off of my idea type thing. And any way you cut it, I think that there are 1,022, 23, something like that, billionaires in the world. There aren't that many. There are something like 12 million millionaires. So the fact is that if someone can build a $10 million business and run it successfully, that's great for them. That's not a business that you should take an investment in, but that's a business that you can run comfortably. And if you think that you can get your business to $100 million, that is exceedingly rare in and of itself. So I think everyone needs to be, the other thing that people just need to be okay with is that they should do their best. They should put 99% of themselves into their business. You should always save at least 1% for yourself so you don't lose your mind. And then if you fail, learn from that. Make up for it in any way you can to those that you may have harmed in failing, and then learn from it and do it better the next time.
Yeah, I see. And when you talk to entrepreneurs or startup founders, what are the qualities? Like, what are the qualities that you look for in the entrepreneur himself or herself? Like, anything that you find that is a good indicator of their likelihood of success?
Yeah. So intelligence, people being humble, people admitting mistakes and actually learning from them, and people being kind. So I see more and more now that the arrogance of people really tends to get in the way, especially when investors are coming to them and saying, hey, we're seeing this, this, and this, whatever these problems are. These things in the 50 other investments we have caused problems. So please watch out for this. And then if they don't listen, that problem comes up, and then it comes up again and again, and the investors may bail them out of it the first and even second time. But after that, if they're not learning, investors stop bailing them out and bad things happen.
Yeah, I see. So in terms of, what the entrepreneur should look at in their investors, you said make sure that the values are aligned. Is there anything else that you can recommend in terms of what should the entrepreneur look in their investor?
Yeah, I think that the other thing people need to look for is an investor that is willing to roll up their sleeves if they have experience, if they have the ability to help. Then they should be willing to roll up their sleeves and help. It's something that I do with many of my startups. And I don't ask for a dime for it. I'm just helping my investment grow. And also stay away from any investor who's trying to sell you something. If they're trying to tell you, well, if you buy this, then I'll give you X amount of dollars, or vice versa. I'm going to give you X amount of dollars, but you have to buy this that they own or that they're going to make money from. That's a big problem.
I see. Okay, that's great. And then one topic which I have discussed, and people don't talk about this openly, but I think there is an undercurrent of people hesitate from or maybe they don't understand what raising money means, because in the process you may end up giving away a huge chunk of your equity, and people don't realize what that means in the long term. So can you educate us? What are some of the things which happen once you accept money, like dilution of your equity, losing control of your company, or getting some influence from the investor, as you said. So what are some of the things that, first time people who have never raised money, they should be aware of as they go about, considering raising money or talking to VCs?
Sure. So once you raise money, a few things will change about your life. One, you will no longer have the ability to fail and not have people be very upset with you. Two is you now have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to those individuals. So therefore, if you were using, for example, the revenue or even the profit of your business as your personal checkbook, that can never happen again. And of course, going down the road of taking an investment means that, for example, if a founder gives up 20% of their business, their equity, to take money, you would think, oh, well, those investors have no control over my business. But that's not necessarily true, because once you take money, now if you may need to raise money again. So now you need to keep those people informed at least on a quarterly basis of how your business is doing. You need to be completely open, honest, and transparent, because if you're not, that could be seen as fraud. And more importantly, as you go down the road of perhaps raising the second, third, and fourth round, now you need to be aware of what you promised. Did you deliver on those promises? If you didn't deliver on those promises, what lessons did you learn so you know not to do that again? I think that over and over, many startup founders love to raise money and then don't think about the consequences of doing such. And it ends up biting a lot of people in the butt in the end. So I think that you have to be ready to be 100% professional. You have to be able to prove where money's going, why it's going there, and you have to be willing to admit mistakes.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. I mean, I think there should be some training on what to expect after you have been, because startup founders and entrepreneurs, they get so excited when they see the big numbers, showing up in the bank account. So they put a lot of energy in actually raising money, but they seldom think about what their life is going to be like after they have received the money.
Yes.
So,
and I think the other thing, when we think about later stage raising money, the one thing that I'm trying to raise awareness of is a very predatory thing that's happening in our industry, which is with our economy booming, a lot of the money is going toward the sexy businesses, right? Social media and those things that, everyone saw Uber or where everyone saw Twitter hit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking, oh, I want to be the next person that makes money. And they forget about those businesses that may not be all that sexy, but are going to make a great profit in the end.
Yeah.
And so now that those non-sexy businesses aren't as likely to raise money effectively, there are predatory investors coming out there saying, I'm going to give you all of the money you want plus some. I'm going to drastically increase your salary, but in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to have control of your business, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And I'm seeing more and more investors or entrepreneurs going down that route, and it is painful to watch because we're seeing those businesses get destroyed by those investors just because they are power hungry.
Yeah. Well, those are very good pieces of advice right there. Now, we talked about a lot of these kind of mistakes that entrepreneurs make. Can you share any mistake that you have made and how we can learn from it?
Absolutely. So as I said, I became a CEO of a tech company. And to be clear, I'm lucky that I can operate an Apple computer, right? So the idea of me being a tech CEO is absurd. But I was arrogant. I thought, oh, well, I was already a successful CEO of one company. Why can't I do it with a second? And ultimately, that led to people losing their jobs. It led to, hundreds of thousands of dollars down the toilet of my money. And most importantly, it led to me realizing that I need to be humble, that I have limitations, and that I need to stick with what I know best. And I need to be an industry expert before I even think about running a company in that arena. And so now that I see that, it has forever altered how I do business. And it has been also the most painful and the most important lesson I've ever learned.
That's good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that also brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much once again for coming onto the show and being so honest and open about this industry, being a venture capitalist, actually, giving the right advice so that people can, get the real deal, bootstrap and build their business, get some revenue, and then consider raising the money, and also preparing them for, how to go about raising money properly, and then what to expect after the money has been raised. Thank you so much. Can you tell us how people can reach out to you?
Of course. They can reach out to me at fulcruminvesting.com, where they can apply for funding, where they can just reach out to ask questions, and they can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, and have yourself a wonderful day.
And that's all for now. Until next time. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a career professional, then I invite you to join our growing community. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. As a welcome bonus, you will get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series and Mastering Your Inner Game video series absolutely free. This series of short videos address some core issues which are instrumental in helping you move forward in your business or career. The videos are yours to view and share for free. No obligations or strings attached, except for one. You have to take action and implement it. So join us today. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out the other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.